All right. Now, I know what you're thinking, and that is that the database idea here just sounds like, man, a whole lot of work. Seems kind of complicated, right? It's really not. I'm going to actually walk you through how to set this up. Now, I won't show you all the different views. I won't go through each of that, but it's pretty easy to get the idea and to finish setting it up the way that you want. And you can spend a little bit of time kind of figuring out what works for you, what's important for you, which might be different than how I've done it here. And don't worry, I am going to provide a template you can just download, but that whole thing will make a lot more sense if you take a look here. So I'm just going to roll down here. I'm going to create a new page, just a blank page in Notion, and we're going to call this the trip database. Okay. Now, I am just going to start with a list right here. So this is now our database. Okay. We have 3 entries by default. Of course, we could have, a ton more, and you certainly will. There are 3 really important things over here. There's the properties, the filter, and the sort button. Okay. Now the filter button, I should mention, there are various views over here, and you start with kind of the default one. And by using the filter button, we'll create filters that will help pull out the information from the database and display it within each view. Okay. Each of these pages here is a database entry. So I'm just going to add some properties to the database here so that we have the right thing. So tags, we're just going to rename this to type. So this would be the type of trip, and I'll explain these in a little bit more detail in a minute. Status, and that is a multi-select as well. What else do we have? Activities, that was another one. And status season, we have that one as well. So there we go. Oops, and activities should not be text, it should be multi-select. We don't really need this created. You can if you want. I'm just going to delete that. And what are we missing? Oh, we're missing the date. So put the date in here, and we'll change the name to dates. All right, now I'm just going to rearrange these, put that up there. All right, and then this will be one of our sample pages. I'm just going to actually delete this, and the name is going to be untitled. Now, these types, all of these multi-selects, you actually just type in what you want. So we're going to just use a few here. We're going to create a day trip tag. We're going to do a weekend one, weekend. There we go. And we'll just call it a big trip, okay? So we'll just use those 3 for now. So there we go. Now you can, this is responding slowly, but we'll change these right here. We can pick whichever ones we want. You don't have to have them there, but now that it's in the system, it's going to pop up like that for every database entry, so every trip. So status, let's see, these were the things that we have to do. So we'll say reserve. What else? We'll say that booked, like it's already booked. And invite, because we might want to invite some people. All right, we'll just leave it like that. Activities, I don't know, hiking, camping, city attractions, whatever. So there we go. All right. Now, again, these will carry over to all the other database entries. Things are working choppy right now. Let's see, season. So we have winter, summer, winter, summer, spring, and fall. All right, there we go. Now, the way that this works from the other video you'll recall is basically everything that is in, every entry that is in this database is a trip idea, meaning a possible trip that we could take at some point in the future, something that we've expressed some interest in doing, but doesn't have a date associated with it, right? So if this is empty, that means that this is still a trip idea. It is not something that we have planned. An upcoming trip is one that has the dates associated with it. So it's kind of on our calendar, and those dates are in the future, right? It's something we haven't done yet. Now, dates obviously in the past mean it's an archive trip. It's a trip that's already happened, and we want that to go onto a different view. Now, one other status that I use is I use open. And that's because the other thing that this can be is a specific weekend or time, really, that you have available for travel, but you haven't decided, what to do. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all these. We're going to use this as an open weekend, and let's see. So we'll get rid of those. All right. So an open weekend would have the status of open, and let's say it's the 13th to the 14th of March. Okay. So good. There it is. Untitled. That's fine. This is basically a placeholder saying, hey, this weekend is open. We have not scheduled anything. We don't have, a birthday party or a wedding or some other event going on that weekend. So this is a weekend we could actually take off and do a little trip. Okay. This one, let's pretend that this is a trip to, Sedona. Okay. And this is just a trip idea, just a day trip. Actually, could be an overnight. Maybe like get a nice hotel, camp, whatever. And let's see, the season is, we'll do spring and fall, okay? And activities, I don't know, we're hiking. All right, so there you go. So this is a trip idea now, okay? Now, again, we have just the one view. We're going to be adding some more views here momentarily. Mouse is not seeming to work well. Let's see. And we'll just leave this. We'll do this. Let's do an overnight. No, let's do a big trip. Let's do Mexico. Okay. Thinking about going to Mexico. We'll call it a big trip. And season doesn't really matter. We'll put them all because it could just work for all. I don't know, city attractions. That's sure we'll do that. And of course we haven't really done anything here yet. So I'm just gonna, we'll put reserve. Okay. Now, if you want, you can actually create this little photo, a cover photo, and we'll just go over here to Unsplash. You can also just drop in a link. So if you want to do that, that's pretty easy. No idea if this is actually in Mexico, but we'll take that. It's rock with the Mayan temple, Aztec temple behind it. All right, so there we go. 3 trip ideas. Now, let's set up some more views, okay? So we have all these different types of views. This one's a table. That's pretty obvious. That kind of looks like a spreadsheet. There's boards, timelines, calendar. The list and the gallery are the 2 ones that I use the most for this. Right now, we're just going to do a list, okay? And that list is going to be trip opportunities, okay? This is the listing of trips that are in the future that we have available to plan, okay? So for filter, we're going to add a filter, and it is going to be the dates is after today, okay? And for properties, I'm going to add the dates right here so that we can see, and I'm going to add the status too so that we can see it here. So properties, turning these on means that you can see them, you can rearrange them, blah, blah, blah. So there we go. That's kind of how I want it shown. So that's good. Now let's create another, and I'm just going to rename this one. It says list views. I'm just going to do all entries. Okay, so we have an easy way of seeing all entries. Now we also want to see upcoming dates. I'm going to duplicate this one so that you don't have to use as much, you can reuse some of this. And we're going to call this upcoming trips, okay? If I can type. There we go. And we'll do it a list still. There we go. Now I'm going to come over. So we're in upcoming trips. I'm going to come over and do dates is after today, right? They're trips in the future. And we're going to add another one. And the status it does not contain open, okay? So that means that, now remember the open tag means that, hey, it's a weekend that we have available, right? This is a weekend that we could do something. And these are upcoming trips that don't have a date associated with them. Now I'm just going to add one right now just so that it's easy to do. So let's pretend that we are doing a kayak Salt River, okay? And we'll say that we're going to do that on June 16th. Why not? This happens to be there we go, day trip. And the activity is kayaking, okay? We don't really need the status. We'll say, I guess we need to invite some friends. We need somebody to help us with the car shuttle, okay? So we have a date. It's a day trip. And now it's going to pop up on the upcoming trips. Now, again, properties, we might want the dates there. And if you like the date on that side, that's fine. If not, you can just drag it up to the top there and it'll swap it, right? So there we go. Now let's add another view and we'll use the list again and we'll type this as open. We'll just call it open, okay? Now this means that there are, and all right, let's go into the filter. This is basically that it is a trip. Here, let's do, add this. Status contains open, okay? So these are weekends that are still open that we have not planned anything for, right? So I'm just gonna come back. This mouse is not working suddenly. So upcoming trips, that's something different, right? Trip opportunities, it shows which ones are coming up. And open means ones that we haven't picked anything for yet, okay? So there you go. So that's a quick way of saying, oh, shoot, what do we still have to plan? All right, and speaking of that, we can create yet another list, and we'll call this to reserve. And that means that we are looking at trips where we still have to make a reservation, okay? So the way to do that is well, first of all, the dates have to be after today, right? So that makes it a trip in the future that you're going to take. And then the status, we're going to add one more filter. And status contains reserve, okay? So that means if there's a trip where we have to reserve, this is how we do it. Actually, you know what? Let's just change this real quick because I didn't. Well, I'll add the. Let's see. Here. We'll see something pop up there in a minute because I didn't actually add anything with that tag yet. But another one I wanted to show you is so these are ideas, right? Sometimes you might want to drill down and see, hey, we have this one day trip a day available. Which day trip idea do we want to put in there, or a weekend or whatever? So I'm just going to do, let's see, day trips. So these are ideas. And again, we'll go with list. Actually, I'm going to do a gallery for this one. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do, I'm going to do big trips. Okay. And I'm going to create that. And I'm going to filter. And actually, let's do this. I'm going to do, yeah, we'll just do big trips. So these are big trip ideas, really, is what this is. So let me change that just so that's obvious. All right, filter. So the dates is empty, right? Because it's a trip idea, okay? And the type is going to be big. Oops. Type contains big trip. All right. So here we have that Mexico one. Now I'm going to go back in here and change this. The properties, because I want to make it look pretty. So I'm going to hit page cover. I could do large if you wanted. Medium's fine. Small would be like that. Medium and large don't look a whole lot different here because there's not more of them. If there's more of them, it kind of squishes them. Other things that you might want to see on here would be which season, perhaps, so that you kind of know what that looks like. But there you go. So this would be if you're trying to choose from ideas, big trip ideas. Now, let's do something a little bit more complicated. Let's try to find the summer day trip ideas, okay? And let's we'll make it a gallery. And first of all, I'm just going to make this none, and the medium's fine. And let's see. So it's already a summer day trip. So yeah, so that's good. We don't really need anything else there. Now, filter. This gets a little bit more complicated. This is kind of as complicated as you're probably going to get for this. So we're going to add a filter group. So this is a nested filters, basically. So there's going to be one or more sets that have to be delineated before you do another set. So here, we're going to do the trip type is day trip, right? And the dates is empty, right? So this is looking at trip ideas in the trip ideas because there's no date associated with them, and it's a day trip. Okay. Now we need to add another filter group here, and the season contains summer. Okay. Now you could have just added a filter here. The other thing I do here is you could also do this. So we want this to be an and then so these two, and the season is either summer or is empty. And the reason I have that on mine is because there are times that I enter data that I might not actually put the season down because I don't really know it, but I still want the idea to pop up because I might still want to research it. So that's why this could get a little bit more complicated, but there you go. You could have this just say these top three ones without using the grouping, but I wanted to show you the nested filter groups. So there you go. Now we don't actually have any summer day trip ideas, but if we did, oops, wrong one. Let's see, summer, and this would be, my favorite summer day trip. Then that would pop up. Okay. All right. So there it is. Now, now we have a few different things. We have ideas in here, trip ideas, right? We have summer day trip ideas, so kind of really drilling down. We have big trip ideas. We have trips that need something to be done to them, done for them. We have open weekends or open dates to travel. We have our list of upcoming trips, right? We have other trip opportunities here that we can still fill, okay? One thing that we're missing that we should add is trips that have already happened, okay? So let's use a list for that, and we'll call this archive trips. And we'll click that. And this is pretty simple because This is, you can probably guess it now, dates is before today. Okay, so we don't actually happen to have any old trip. We'll just put this in here so you can see it, and we'll go back a month and we'll pick a day, and there you go. And here it is, it pops up. So, and then here are all of our entries. Obviously, you can do a lot more with it. You can change what you see here. You can, we saw the big cards here. The other thing, upcoming trips, of course, you'd probably want to sort that, and you'd probably want to sort it by date so that when you have other ones, other trip, and we'll pick that day. No, actually, we'll pick a whole range. Then it will pop up and we'll say, so this is like a long weekend. So we want the first date, the earlier date at the top, probably, right? So you can add the sort. And there you go. So I've kind of shown you all the different ways that you can set this up. It kind of mocks or mirrors the this system here. Now, obviously, I have a lot more data in here, and the sample one that I just did would look quite a bit different. A couple quick tips: if you're using status and a date, the medium card seems to work really well on mobile. Sometimes this list, the way that it shows up, this date gets truncated a little bit if you have a bunch of tags. So like on this one, you may not see the second date. So that's why we have these other views here. You have a little mobile emoji there to help delineate that. And then of course you can, change the open to just long weekends or big trips or whatever. You can add however you want these to-dos to be. And of course you can kind of set all of this up. So it's basically everything I just showed you. Now, you can also do these inline linked databases. So if I went to linked, create a new page, create a linked database, and then I could actually select the database. And it looks like I'm gonna have to search for it. Oops, went away. Let's try that again. And search for a trip calendar. And here we go. And then I could go through and change a bunch of the views. This is exactly the same data as the trip calendar, as your main database, but it's just shown in a different place. Now I'm just going to delete this because we don't need it. But here is an example of other things you can do. Trip costs. So that basically just allows us to keep track of any of the costs that we have associated with any of these trips. And let's see, if I just go to open, then you can see I just added additional fields for that. And you can easily kind of set that up. So the filter here gets a little bit more complicated because I want this only for 2021. So that means the dates are for trips before 2022 and after 2020, and does not include open dates, which are placeholders, because they're open. And then the type does not include day trip and overnight. We do that simply because we don't track costs on day trips or overnights because we just don't do it because it's not useful data for us. So there you go. If you wanted to see how much your international trips cost, you could do something similar. Data's before today, so this would show all of the international trips that we do on this. Does not contain these ones here. Does not contain that, and contains international. So there you go. There are lots of different ways of doing this. This is the way I've set it up, and you're more than welcome to kind of figure out which of these things you want to delineate, which ones you don't. But it's not that hard to really set up. And I will provide a template for similar to the way I do it, and you can kind of just mess with it from there, play around with it. The nice thing about Notion is that you can also easily duplicate this entire database with just like a couple clicks. That and duplicate would duplicate the whole thing. So you can have many backup copies just to make sure you don't muck something up. So there you go. If you have any questions, shoot me an email at hey@rscottjones.com, and I will do my best to answer them. So there you go.